Welcome to the Happy Dog, Happy Human podcast, where we explore the intersection between human mental health and our relationships with dogs. This is Sharon.
And I'm Angela. In season 2, we're exploring social and cultural phenomena that impact our well-being so we can reduce stigma and challenge the status quo, while also learning better ways to care for ourselves and our dogs throughout the journey. We hope you love it.
Hello, everybody. Sharon here.
And this is Angela, and we are now on episode 7 of our season 2. Crazy.
Yes, 15 episodes total.
It's wild to actually think of it like that. We've really created a podcast.
Yeah.
Well, so this is a topic that we've been wanting to talk about for a while now. So I'm very excited. And the topic is about success with humans this episode. And then the next episode will be on success with dogs. And today we are going to talk about what success means, what it means to us, our own personal experiences with striving for success, by society standards, by our own expectations of ourselves, and how we've learned to move through failure ultimately. Because without failure, there's no success, and without success, there's no failure. So when we're talking about success, we're also going to be talking about failure. And we will have our ad break where you'll hear from our sponsors. And after that, we'll talk about how we move through success and failure. And at the end, we will have a care tip by me.
Yay. Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. So before we start talking, should we do some breathing?
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay. So we're going to take a little pause and do some breaths. We would love it if you would do that with us as well. So we'll be back in
a
couple
after a few breaths. See you soon. I always feel so good after taking a few deep breaths.
Me too, but also I realized how tired I am.
Oh no.
Closing my eyes and I was like, oh my gosh, I could fall asleep right now.
Right. Yeah, it's like so relaxing. You're like, oh yeah. That's where I want to be.
Yeah. So let's get started on this topic. I'm really excited to delve into it. I think something I liked doing our last episode on toxic positivity was that we looked up the definition, and I wanted to do the same thing for success, and I think we both did.
Yeah, we both looked it up separately and put it on our outline for the podcast.
Exactly.
And we found different definitions.
Yeah, which I think was also really fascinating. So we definitely wanted to start there. And I'll start with the one that I found it, and then maybe Sharon, you can share yours after we talk about it.
Yeah.
So I found one from the Oxford. It's just the Oxford Dictionary, right? I think that's what it's called. And they define success as a noun that is the accomplishment of an aim or purpose.
That is very straightforward.
Very straightforward. And when I read that, I felt like it almost like took the intensity out of the word success. It just felt more like a word instead of something that is so charged.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think reading this definition made me realize how charged that word has become in
Mhm.
our, everyday lives.
Yeah. Yeah, because you could aim toward anything, or like do anything on purpose in terms of like, if I want to get dressed today, I'm like, have a goal to pick out a cool outfit that feels comfortable and like, okay, I did it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and what you said, okay, my aim is to complete making dinner, and that could be successful and it could mean something different for different people also,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's what's interesting about the word. This is a simple definition, but when you ask different people what is success to them, they're probably going to have very different answers, even
Hmm.
though they're all related to this definition.
Right. Yeah. Like each person's goal or each person's like purpose or like relationship with purpose or goals is going to contribute to their definition.
Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the
So what did you
definition,
find?
yeah, the definition I found was from Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and they define success as the attainment of wealth, favor, or eminence, which is like status or superiority.
Which is very interesting because that is the way that I would maybe have thought about success if you had asked me what is success from a cultural lens.
Hmm.
I would think about it having to do with status, which, wealth and all those other things go under that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so both those definitions like ring true to me. I think the first one is more just in a simpler way
Mhm.
of like completing a goal or a purpose, and then the second one really has to do with this more um sort of charged definition of what success means in our society.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I feel like the Oxford definition is like you can attain success like just based on your own. It's like the meaning of the success is defined by you. And with the Merriam-Webster definition, it's like the meaning of success is defined by everybody else and their perspective of you.
Yeah, that's so true. So it's more of like an internal uh drive or perspective versus an external.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is two ways. I mean, that plays true in my life for sure of when I'm aiming to do something, there is the fuel of what are people around me going to think about this? And
Hmm.
then there is the internal fuel of what am I going to think about this in terms of myself and
Hmm.
how will I feel about myself?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That really makes me think of it makes me think of two different things. It makes me think of like the goal that I had in grad school to like obtain a doctoral degree, and then my more recent goal to like build a business.
Well, what about those things? Like, well, I'm curious. Okay, so like let's start with the doctoral degree. I mean, we both have quote unquote higher education degrees.
Mhm.
And, I think those are typically thought of as externally, that means that you're successful, right?
Mm,
Or is
right.
a uh what's the word? It's like a bullet point of success in someone's life to have higher
Mm,
education.
yeah.
So for you, like what was the aim or purpose of getting your doctoral degree in terms of success?
Ooh, that's a great question. There were a couple. Like one reason was I wanted to see if I could do it. Yeah,
Hmm.
like I was like, I don't know if I could do that or like be that person. And I wanted to see if I could. And then another part was to, I guess, open opportunities for myself, work wise, to like help myself have more opportunities or to be able to do work that felt more meaningful to me.
Hmm. So that's like the personal goals and It sounds like in what you're saying though, like those successfully completing that was also something that's very good for your self-esteem from your own personal lens and how you feel about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was an external motivator as well, which was like when you go into like any kind of like degree program or professional training program, you're like, there's a goal to be part of that profession, right? So I had a goal um, to be part of the healthcare profession, but also to be in relationship or like be a colleague of people who were doing animal assisted interventions.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, and that also makes me think that every profession also has their own definition of success and
Yeah,
what that means.
that's a good point.
And some professions getting that higher education is part of the success. In my master's degree, you go on to get a license afterwards. And I mean, that's also kind of this is a strange thing because the expectation to be successful is to go get your license, but there are people who choose not to and to just keep the master's degree, and this is where we keep aiming, more and more forward. And what are we doing that for? And I remember talking to friends slash colleagues in the professional field who decided to only keep, and I'm saying it also, like I say, only keep, but
Mhm.
you hear it in my own, of course, like it's been colored, right, in my way that, okay, that you're going to stop there and not keep going, that means there's some sort of deficiency of success, which is absolutely not the case. And what I was saying before is that I spoke with friends who decided to not pursue the licensure and having to grapple with feeling not successful
Mm,
because of that. But it made sense for them not to, for whatever professional, personal reasons.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like the license is specifically so that you can work with clients, right? And
Correct.
like, but the degree, the knowledge that and the skills that you attain are widely applicable, especially in social work, I feel like, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But there is that feeling of like, oh, well, I successfully got the license. So that puts me at a different status. So then we're going back to the second part, the second dictionary definition.
Mhm.
Um, and then, yeah. And so this becomes very complicated, I think, for people on an individual level, because what you were describing, like what is driving us to do these things?
Mhm.
Is it something that's external that we want to be seen a certain way? Is it internal? Is it both? I mean, it probably is both also.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I think, yeah, this is why it's such a it's such a heavy word, success.
Mhm.
It isn't so simple because it can mean so many different things, and there's so many different things that drive us to success or
Yeah,
to want to be successful, whatever that means.
right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think the challenge is like, well, what happens if it doesn't turn out the way that you thought, or like you have to change course, or like you said, if like you choose to not um not go the direction that everybody is expecting or that the profession deems as like completion of the process.
Yeah, and also, on top of that, like, completely just blanked out what I was going to say. Just listening to you so intently.
I hate when that happens. I'm glad that you said
It'll
that
come
though.
back to me. Let's
Yeah.
just keep talking. It'll come back to me. I was like, yes, what Sharon is saying is so awesome. And now I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, I think
So,
we're kind of it is totally okay. That happens. Sometimes I've been like, I was being interviewed for another podcast. And sometimes when I'm doing that, I feel like I have to keep talking because if I stop, I'm going to go blind.
Oh, totally. I feel like that's just I have such a quick brain that I am always very afraid of like losing my train of thought.
Right. It's like
Because
you
I
have to
do
hold on.
often. Like my mind just goes to the next thing pretty quickly. So
Mhm.
it's yeah, it's hard to keep my train of thought. Struggles.
Yeah.
Um, but
I think we were
well, so oh,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was trying to just remind us. It was kind of like we were talking about failure or like kind of
Oh, yes. Okay, you actually reminded me. So thank you. What I wanted to add to what you were saying is that sometimes what happens too is people get paralyzed by success and
Mm,
fear of failure, right? And then they're not able to do anything. That's not an uncommon thing that happens as well, where yeah, it becomes so daunting, the idea that you might not be successful,
mm,
that you're not able to be productive in the way that you want to be.
hmm. Yeah, that's such a great point. And I think it can partially be, well, maybe a lot of it is a subconscious experience where like you're not actively thinking like, oh, I'm just not going to go for this goal because I won't be able to do it. I mean, sometimes that's the case, is that you're consciously choosing that. But then there are other experiences that I've had where I'm like in building my business, for example, like I am consciously building a business and setting that goal, but then there are ways in which I behave in that I'm like subconsciously sabotaging myself from being able to take action that will help me reach that goal.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Mhm.
What ways, may I ask?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah, well, like, so I'll have so with like social media, for example, I will I have to like promote myself on social media. That's part of like marketing is part of building the business. Actually, I have another example. So networking is also part of building the business, right? And so in networking, I will like reach out to other professionals to try to like introduce myself or start a conversation or build a relationship. And so like I consciously have this goal of I'm going to network with other professionals, but then subconsciously I sabotage myself by like choosing to reach out to professionals who actually aren't aligned with my values or who like wouldn't be good referral sources for me. So then I
Interesting.
feel I like it almost confirms my fear that I'm not successful because I'm reaching out to people and it's like a dead end. And then I'm like, oh, well, I'm not good at this business stuff. I can't do it.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, to find like evidence of why you're not successful, so I might as well just not do it. And
Yeah,
it's a way of like protecting ourselves also
exactly. Yeah.
from 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 the pain of failing.
Mhm.
But again, it's a quote unquote failing because it is all about perspective, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things, so I think having a business, man, I am constantly redefining success
Mm.
every day because it's the only way I can keep going.
Wow.
Because if I start, comparing myself to other people, especially at the beginning of a business, like money, you're not going to be making a profit, that's just a reality. And and I think a lot of people don't realize that, who don't have businesses. I think one of the biggest issues with social media that now has become the beacon of uh, what it means to be successful, to look at those, accounts that seem successful. That's the other thing. Seem is a very important word there
Mm.
because through social media, we've become like very hyper about wanting to show success. and
Mhm.
show that we are successful in the way that we think everybody else should see us as such, because we can put whatever we want on there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so curated that it's like for me, I think I notice this when I'm following other, like I'll follow like business coaches or people who have like similar businesses to me, and you're only seeing their curated content, which is like 0.01% of their actual life, and um and people are gonna maybe talk about their wins, because that like looks great and that
Yeah,
get people interested. And if you see their win as like I had a like $20,000 month last month, um and then like but they're not talking about like the months or years of like not making a profit, or honestly
right,
$20,000 might not be a profit depending on how much
right,
they're spending. So you don't really have the whole picture of what's going on, but then you feel like, or like I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not making $20,000 a month. I'm a failure because I've been like working at this so long and I'm not doing that yet.
right. And we don't have any idea. I mean, I think about those like big fashion brands a lot, like Gucci and Chanel and Louis Vuitton, and they again are like this ideal of success, and that's how they present themselves. Like, we have a store on Rodeo Drive and a store in the fancy street in Milan, and we're dressing all the celebrities, but in reality, so many of those brands are completely bankrupt. And
Mm,
that is not what we're getting. And what you're seeing with those particular brands, I'm only using this example because it was something I was talking about with someone recently. But you've got these big companies now that are buying them up because
mm.
they actually don't make any money.
Oh, wow.
And so I think that that's just like a fascinating truth about what we consider as a society like the most successful
Mhm.
are maybe not successful in that particular way, like financially,
Yeah.
And so, sure, are they successful in other ways? Yeah, they're successful in the sense of, brand equity,
Mm.
um, uh,
I guess
you know,
notoriety.
notoriety, right? So, and that's where we have to redefine success. So, like, what, for many businesses, I think people go into it like making a profit is success.
Mhm.
But that's just not the reality for businesses at the beginning, especially.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's only
and
one
so then,
of the business.
right, right. And so, like, in my business, because I'm doing retail, I at first was like, success is sales,
Mm.
but sales are not rolling in at the point that I would need them to be to have a profitable business. And that's the truth.
Mhm.
So what is going to keep me going? Like, how do I define success every day? And it's a struggle. Like, I'm going to be real, it is a struggle. There are days where I want to give up. There are days that I cry about it. There are days that I have imposter syndrome. Like, it is not it is not easy at all. And that is the 99% that we're not seeing on social media.
Mhm. Wow. I can relate so hard to that. Like, it's like I have to wake up every day and remind myself, like, okay, this is what I'm striving for. Because, like, one of the main motivators for me to start this business, Human Canine Collaborative, and stop doing Holistic Dog Expert, which was a smaller, well, not smaller, it was a good size dog training business in Los Angeles where I provided in person dog training services. And I also had dogs come and stay with me for training. And I got to a point, I was actually in 2020, where I was realizing that that business model was not sustainable because I was just driving all over Los Angeles going to people's homes, and then I always had a dog in my home, and I couldn't grow. Like, I couldn't go to more homes than I was already going to. I couldn't have more dogs stay with me. Like, I thought about like maybe hiring people and just like having more people do what I was doing, but that it still didn't feel like sustainable in a way that would lead to me like being able to retire one day or have my own dog, or,
Yeah.
so I shifted my business model to what it is now, which is work like offering digital services and also building digital products that I could sell, so that, and like offering group services so that way I can reach more people, but I can also have passive sources of income and things like that. So sustainability and health, like my own personal health, were really big motivators for me to shift my business. But I have to always remind myself that that is my goal, and I was never having a goal to like be a millionaire or anything
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah, and I think that's like the what we're saying. It's like the redefining success on a daily basis. And I can relate to that with cloud doodles also. Like I know that that's not like $1 million idea, and that's not my goal. My goal is also sustainability, and my goal is to create community, which I have. And I also have to remind myself, like, community around mental health for dog parents,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, it's really, yeah, it's just hard. It's hard though, because again, it's the comparison. It's who am I following on Instagram? But again, I don't know what's going on in those businesses and those people's, like, I don't know what success means for them.
Mhm.
Um, and let's say I was making hundreds of sales a week. What would that mean for my own personal and mental health? You
Mm.
know? Um, which is something that I've been thinking about recently. I'm like, actually, that would be not so great right now in my life.
Mm.
But from whatever this drive is to seem successful, that's the thing in the top of my head. I need to have 200,000 followers, and I need to be selling hundreds of, boxes a week.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily what would be good for me
Mm. Hmm.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like that level of success, like coming that quickly, like you have to think about the reality of it and like, okay,
Yeah.
what do you actually have to do to maintain that? So that you don't crash or burn out or something. And it's like, wow, like you have to have systems in place, and you have to like really plan for that and be able to handle it when you get there. And getting there quickly, it's like it's not realistic or healthy.
No. And that's the other problem with social media nowadays, is that you get this feeling of like everybody's successful overnight,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
that's also just not true. And also what we're saying, like, people who do get successful overnight, businesses that get successful overnight, actually often fail in the end because they can't keep up with the growth. It's too quick.
Hmm.
But this is going back to urgency, right? Like, we're in such a rush to check all the boxes, to be successful, to make all the money.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, I think that is counterproductive.
Hmm. I totally agree. That makes me think of how, like, in 2020, after the social justice uprising began, and there was this drive to support Black-owned businesses. And so, like,
Mm,
everybody was like flooding these businesses, and a lot of them probably didn't make it because they had so much business so quickly and it wasn't sustainable. And it was urgency. And I think a lot of like maybe white fragility and shame that was like driving that action. And so, like, on two fronts, like, one, it wasn't a sustainable support of Black owned businesses. And two, it wasn't a sustainable like practice of anti-racism.
that's actually such an interesting example, because I think that's so true. There's like there's an urgency, I think, because of what you're saying with white fragility, of like needing to feel like I'm not a racist, and I need to, like, but that's also this need to be successful, that you could put success on that. I'm a successful, not racist, right? Or
Right.
anti-racist. And
Mhm.
this like need or fear, I mean, that's like also fear driven, of like, how will people perceive me, instead of
Mm.
really taking the time to think about, like, how can I challenge my own, you know subconscious racism that has been part of my upbringing, part of everybody's, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like if you've been living under this perception that like there is no racism in the US, for example, and then 2020 woke you up to how pervasive it is, you can't change yourself overnight. You know, you can't change your actions or your thoughts or your internalized perceptions overnight. It takes probably as long to change it as it took to develop it.
Yeah, but then again, it's like I think it is all driven by this like need for external validation, you
Yeah,
know?
like I need people to see me as this.
Which I mean, and then the thing is that there's nothing like particularly, it's not a bad thing also because we are social creatures and we have a strong need to belong. That's how we function. It's just when it becomes like dysfunctional, you know, and when that external motivation becomes more important than your internal motivation. Like it will always be there and it should be there to a certain extent, right? But when it just becomes that, then at the end of the day, I think you're going to be very disappointed as an individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
Once you reach success, if you do, you know,
right.
quote unquote.
Oh, yeah. So it sounds like you're saying like if you're only um following this external motivation or like striving for something because of how you want people to see you and you're not aligning your actions with your own values or internal motivation, then the success isn't going to mean what you think it's going to mean.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And the first example that pops into my head with that is celebrities.
Oh, yeah.
That is just such a, you know, I grew up in LA, so I grew up around this culture. And not just LA, I grew up around the Hollywood culture. So I saw that a lot. People are so driven by wanting to be loved, admired, by everyone, you know, and so many of those people, when they become famous, if they become famous, it's never enough, first of all, because you're never going to be the most famous.
Yeah.
And second of all, people are very disappointed and they get very depressed, and there's rampant drug abuse to numb those feelings out of like, oh my gosh, I've reached the definition of fame and wealth and success, but I still feel like shit and I still don't know who I am
Yeah.
because I only was trying to achieve this like exterior shell of success, but then what about on the inside?
Mhm. Wow. That makes me feel kind of sad.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I look at celebrities a lot, and I mean, I don't look at them a lot. I actually unfollowed them all on my Instagram, on my personal Instagram.
Mhm.
Um, but you know, whenever, yeah, I feel sad. I honestly feel sad for them more than anything
Mhm.
because I think most of them feel a lot of pain. And you know, I think you see some like they come out that they go do the internal work afterwards because they realize like, oh, this is not like what I'm sorely disappointed because I don't feel fulfilled
Yeah.
by being loved for something that I'm not, or and that's not me, you know. It's just this shell of a person that people love and admire. They don't actually know who I am.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's such a big component of Hollywood. And I'm thinking like both musicians and actors are like we fall
Mm,
in love with their character, right? And I'm not saying like
right.
their character in terms of like their qualities, but we fall in love with the image that they're projecting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that's why, like in my business, I want to do more of this next year. I really want to focus on the lifestyle piece of my business
Mm.
and create more community, but also be wholeheartedly myself, my authentic self on social media. You know, this podcast has been that for us, I think. where we just want to be ourselves and like, you're not going to make everyone happy. You're not going to touch everybody, but like touch people in a way that helps them feel less alone.
Yeah. And ultimately help yourself, like make choices and do it in a way that is right for you.
Also, yeah. Yeah. And another thing, since we're talking about this, another thing that people don't talk a lot about, of course, we talk about fear of failure and how that might impact our mental health, but people also don't talk about the fear of success.
Ooh, you're right. Yes. That comes up sometimes with some of my, or has come up with my OT clients.
Ooh, interesting. Do tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like it comes up when they realize that it's kind of like what I was talking about before about like how I subconsciously sabotage myself in my business, right? And this could be a component of that as well, like the fear of success, because with my OT clients, I was working with people who were significantly ill and struggling to like do things like get a job or go through school or things like that. Like they're really socially impacted in terms of their ability to have relationships and be a part of society in the way that society deems as successful. And um, and so there's this like healing period that they're going through when they're working with me. And then like there's actions that they would take to move on from their healing and enter society, so to speak. And I have felt this as well, like in terms of like healing from post-traumatic stress and grief after like leaving Holistic Dog Expert in California and starting this new business. I got really comfortable in the healing period, like at first it was weird to spend so much time on myself and my health. But then I got like comfortable with it and I'm like, okay, yeah, now I'm good at caring for myself. And then it's time to transition out of the healing period and go back to work. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that and a lot of risk too, because it's like, okay, now I have to be society facing instead of just worrying about myself. And now I'm going to do something in which other people are going to rely on me or expect things from me. And that feels really scary because I'm not going to do it perfectly because I'm human and I can't do it perfectly. So I'm going to make mistakes and people are going to see that.
Yeah. Ugh, that totally. Yeah. That makes me think like whenever I have a um like a block with doing like an Instagram story that's more personal, like everything you just described that's the block.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can be scary and heavy. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
heavy reality. And the responsibility, it's a heavy responsibility is a better way of putting it.
Definitely. Yeah.
To be successful, right? And there are some people that, for example, I've met an influencer who has maybe close to 300,000 followers, and we had a conversation about what that means for him,
Mhm.
and it was fascinating that the first thing he said to me is people don't realize the heaviness of responsibility that is put on you, and they
Mm,
don't realize like what that actually means once you get there.
right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Just like all the people who are expecting things from you and watching you and
Yeah.
asking
And
for
what you're putting out there,
Yeah.
like how that could impact people.
Hmm.
Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Mm, no problem. This feels like we're getting to a natural pause, and I'm wondering if you would like to take a break and then come back and talk about ways to care for ourselves as we strive for success.
I love it. Let's do it. See you soon.
We are so grateful to Benson's Pet Center for partnering with us on today's episode. Benson's Pet Center is a multi-generational, family-owned and operated business with 8 locations in the New York Capital Region. Benson's has the largest selection of pet food in the area. If they don't have what you're looking for, they'll even order it for you. You can bring your dog with you to pick out their favorite treats, and you can even give them a bath at the self-serve dog wash in 3 of their locations. Benson's has competitive pricing even on subscription services, and I love knowing that my dollars are supporting a local business. The customer service at Benson's is consistently unparalleled, and the staff's extensive knowledge on pet nutrition is amazing. Can't make it out to the store? No problem. Order online before 3 p.m. on weekdays, and Benson's offers same-day delivery. And curbside pickup is available 7 days a week. Benson's Pet Center, where the motto is, "We love your pets." Thank you, Benson's. Now back to the show.
And we are back. So we will start part 2 of Success with Humans with a quote that I actually happened to hear this morning in the car and was like, whoa, this conversation was meant to be today.
Love it.
I've been really into this other podcast called Raising Good Humans. And the host was always interviews someone, and was interviewing a poet about how to cultivate resilience and achievement in our children. Mm-hmm. And this quote came up about success at the end of the episode. So it is quoted by Gloria Steinam, who, if you don't know who she was, she really pioneered the second wave or third wave of feminism. Not sure which wave, one of the waves of feminism in the 1970s. And they asked her, a magazine asked her to define success. And what she said was, it's the moment you feel you do something you care about, that you can be honest and live in the moment.
Oh, I really like that. I feel like there could be so many moments when you think about it that way.
Yes. And I think it really speaks to what I was saying earlier about being your authentic self also. Mm-hmm. That success, when you feel successful, it is because you have completed something that was true to who you are and your values. And another thing they went on to say in this podcast, that having a healthy sense of achievement also includes imagination. Mm-hmm. And as adults, we often lose that imagination. Mm-hmm. And I think it also, that ties back into like, you know, success has to do with something that you're doing that you care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the word honest in there, it makes me think of what you were just saying about authenticity, right? Like just being yourself and being true to yourself.
Yes. And so when we redefine success in our daily lives, that's a very important check-in that I think you and I were describing before as well. That is, what goal am I going to achieve today, or in 5 days, or in 5 years, that is what is going to be also good for me at the end of the day, and not just like what we want to be seen as.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes me think of this goal that I've had to, like, part of one of my, like, goals with how I work in terms of sustainability is to be able to listen to my body and have like my body contribute to making decisions, and also like stopping work at the end of the day at a time that feels like good, and not basing my completion of work on whether or not I've completed the to-do list.
That is such a difficult thing to do, but I think it is such an important thing to do as well. Mm-hmm. We are so connected to our work because of our devices also. And I think when you run your own business, it's just very hard to put the phone down, put the computer away. and having like healthy boundaries for yourself. And that can be a day-to-day thing. And I love what you're saying, like listen to your body, because it does depend the day. And also this all ties back to perfectionism, urgency culture. You know, the other episodes that we've been talking about of why do you have such a need to finish your to-do list? Like, is that for you, or is that because you feel like that's what you should be doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So again, going back to that internal versus external, like definitions of success.
Yeah. And also like how we've internalized the external definitions, you know, and reframing that for ourselves. One of the things I love that my husband does is that he's really like not a perfectionist in the sense where he's like, I did one thing today and like that's good enough for me.
I love that.
Me too. He's like, yeah, I went to the post office and sent some packages. Like that's good.
Yeah.
That was successful. I don't need to do more than that. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't have to do 20 things until midnight, you know, to be successful
Right.
in my own in my own definition.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we talked about this in the urgency episode, that idea of like success as being like, oh, I'm like busy all the time. I'm tired and miserable all the time. My friend, Melissa, who I grew up with, actually said once, you're not happy unless you're miserable. Because of that like idea that like, oh, if you're constantly busy and stressed out, that means you're important and doing a good job.
It's really funny, but it's true.
It's so true.
Well, and that's the other thing, you know, we didn't really talk about this, but how I think the link between happiness and success and what we consider happiness, that's another really big piece of this, because I think so many people, we want to be successful because we think that's going to make us happy, right? And
Right.
so we are trying to attain this success that society says, if you do these things, you're going to be happy. Which is the biggest farce. I've learned it as an adult, and I'm still upset about it because
Valid.
I thought if I went to grad school and I got married and I had a kid and did all those things that I would be happy.
Yeah.
But happiness doesn't work like that. It's not just like a okay, I'm happy now, and like all the other bad feelings are just gone. Like because I completed what I was supposed to complete. You know, I'm learning as an adult, happiness and comes in joyful moments of excitement, and it's small moments. It's not like these big, you know, of course I was happy and had a sense of achievement when I got my master's, but like what brings me joy or makes me happy in these days are cuddling with my dogs, painting with my daughter, you know, and you have to hold on to those moments. Those are the moments that are going to like make happy memories, I guess, because you can't be in a constant state of happiness.
That is so true. Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. Mine was burst a long time ago, so
Yep. Here's the reality check.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are some happy people that are just happy all the time, but I don't think so. I think that's usually that's toxic positivity.
Right. And
just
they're not
tie
really
all of the episodes in.
Yeah. I love what you listed though, as just like, it sounds like being really present with your family and the people you care about, you know, like you said, cuddling with your dogs and painting with your daughter, and yeah, and just like being present and having that connection and feeling that love. I think I can relate to that. I was thinking about times in which I've felt happy and content, and also a sense of success with my work, has been moments in which I'll overhear Tom interacting with Muggins in some way. Like there was one time a few months ago that Muggins like went over to their food bowl and then walked away and like didn't want to eat their dinner. And and I heard Tom just kind of like processing out loud, like, oh, I wonder if the music is too loud. I'll turn it off and maybe then you'll want to stay in the room. And then the other day, Tom was teaching Muggins about this new treat puzzle that we got. And it was so freaking adorable. I was overhearing from the other room, and Tom is saying things like, try over here, buddy. Okay. And then, like, yeah, you got it. And then, like, I think we're all done. And then, oh, no, you were right. There's one more. And it was just like this. So it was so sweet to just like, and these are like new ways that I've heard Tom interact with dogs. Not that he's ever like interacted in a bad way with dogs, but just like hearing him think about like how he might be impacting Muggins with his music, or just like being really patient and encouraging, or recognizing that Muggins knew something that he didn't. And I'm just like, oh, wow, like that's coming from the shift in how I'm approaching my work. And that feels so good. Like if I never make money on this business or make a profit or anything, like I still feel like a huge success because of what I've witnessed in my own family.
I love seeing you light up talking about this. Like
Mm.
it's just like I see it. I mean, people, there's some listeners that can't see your face, but you're just lighting up. Like you became so emotive when describing this. And that's love, that's joy of what
Mhm.
you're describing, for your partner, for Muggins, for their relationship, for how you were able to help them. Yeah, like these are the wins, right? Like these are the successes. And what I was saying, like with cloud doodles, it's similar. Like my wins have to do with the relationships I've created, putting a smile on people's faces. Um, I actually, one of the things, this was so sweet, but I have a group of ambassadors. One of my ambassadors made me, because she knows that I go through this sometimes, like the imposter syndrome, that I struggle.
Mm.
And she made me a frame with all of the ambassadors wearing cloud doodles saying like sweet words. So I always had something to look at when I feel
Oh.
down. But
Mm.
that's something you can make for yourself also, right? It made me think that like this is such a beautiful, like visual um interpretation of how cloud doodles is successful to me and for me.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's definitely like I think another way you can do that. And I think something we're really tapping into also is gratefulness here, you
Mm.
know, that
Yeah.
these are moments of gratitude that we have, and ultimately like those are the warm moments that give us joy and warm moments of happiness,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
you
and I
know.
think because these moments of joy and success are not necessarily like recognized by society or like talked about publicly or reinforced through like cultural norms, we have to actively keep those moments present, like you're saying, with
Yeah.
how the ambassador created that visual image for you. And
Yeah.
I've been doing that in similar ways. Like I have on the back of my door over here, I just like put all of this paper so that I can write down when like someone reaches out to me on Instagram and tells me that my work is really meaningful to them, or when a
Mm.
client like achieves something that they were working on. And then on my desktop computer, I have this wins tracker that my business coach Dez Davis gave me. And so it's like a digital document and it lists every day of the week. And then you write down your wins on every day and you describe like why was that a win. And so it's something I've been trying to do every week, if not like check in every day and put something on there so that I'm constantly reminding myself of the things that I have accomplished in this journey and the ways in which I am successful.
Yeah, I totally love that. I mean, and that's part of, and that's a practice, right? Like that's
Mhm.
something, when we're reframing things, we have to practice them because it's not the messaging that we're getting, and it's not the internal messaging we're getting because we've been taught something a certain way.
Yeah.
Um, so it's hard, like it's hard to do that. It's hard to challenge your the wiring of your thinking that has been reinforced over and over again. So yeah, I'm saying those things because it is a practice. And well, one of the things, I had another ambassador. I love my ambassadors. Obviously, they're huge supports to me, and a lot of them have become close friends of mine. Another ambassador of mine, I was really bummed. I think it was last year. I was like, I only made 200 sales, and like I wanted to make more. And she was like, Angela, if you were in a store and 200 people were lined outside the door to buy your things, you would be thrilled. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. But again, and this has to do with with Instagram and online and numbers that are very high. And it makes me think again with the store, like we're comparing ourselves to a huge worldwide pool. Back in the day, as if I'm like 70 years old, but I'm not, you had small peer group. You compared to yourself to the people in your village, and that was it, right? And now we just have, and I feel for the younger generation, because you're not just comparing yourself to who you think is, the quote unquote pretty girl at school. Now it's like hundreds of thousands of the pretty girls at school. Who you perceive as the successful kid in high school, for example, which a lot of times those kids are struggling. And again, that has to do with our reframe. Like, the people who seem successful, I think, are often the ones that are actually suffering the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'm thinking now of also talking about failure and how we approach that, because like in thinking about these people that we think are successful or that we view as successful, there's this phenomenon of like how we change our view of them if they make a mistake or go a different direction,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like getting back to like that, like choosing not to get the license that goes with your degree because you're going in a different direction, and how people view that versus how you can view that for yourself.
Well, the first thing that comes up for me, I'm thinking celebrities, because we were talking about celebrities. And
yeah,
what you're saying, of course, with the license is true, but I'm thinking celebrities because it does happen a lot. Celebrities have this up, and then they're at the top, and then they do something or produce something that people don't like, and it completely flips how people view them. And that's a very painful thing. I think a lot of people who are quote unquote successful from a societal point of view, they also have to keep it up. And that pressure, maybe that's what that influencer was saying to me, the pressure of that responsibility of also keeping it up. And yeah, it's we can so quickly flip, like how as the public, we flip on people a lot, on public figures a lot.
That I really relate to that, because like right now I'm in a period in my business where I'm kind of like pulling back from marketing and networking because I want to assess the systems that are in place in my business and like establish better systems so that I can not feel burnt out and I can actually move forward. And I've really struggled with how to be public facing during this time, right? Because it feels like I'm failing at something if I'm not public facing for a while, or if I'm not marketing or anything. And it kind of feels like, oh, I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing by like taking a break.
That's such a difficult, yeah, like that's a really hard feeling to deal with, because of, again, like today's world, like we're told like you need to be active, constantly showing yourself. And yeah, so maybe you lose 2 or 3 followers, but at the end of the day, for you to redefine success and to feel success and a healthy sense of achievement, that's what you need to be doing right now. And sometimes taking a break, it is what we need to do and take a step back.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of reframing success and dealing with failure. I've actually been wanting to do that myself a little bit, take a step back. But I think that's the other thing, like, this is going into a little bit of a different topic, but sometimes I think about, okay, if I took a step back from cloud doodles or even stopped it, like, does that mean it wasn't successful? And my answer is no. It was successful because I learned so much to take into whatever is next.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes also it's not, it is a success to also call it quits sometimes. Not that I'm going to call it quits on cloud doodles, but it's important to reassess these things, you know? And what my favorite thing to tell people when they quit a job is congratulations. And people are like, what? And I'm like, no, congratulations, because you felt something in yourself that it was time to move on and to move forward. Does it mean, you know, your 5 years doing whatever you were doing was a failure? Absolutely not.
Right. Oh my goodness. I had this when I was working with my business or my consent coach, Mia Schachter, we were having this conversation and I was like, in my head, I believed that I was like rejected from this job that I chose to leave. And Mia was like, no, Sharon, you chose that. And that was a good thing because they weren't paying you enough and they weren't valuing you. And it was the right move for you to walk away from that. But in my head, I was like, they rejected me and it's terrible. And yeah,
I'm a failure.
yeah, felt like a failure. But I had to like consciously remind myself that like, no, I chose that. And even though it felt like a failure because it was a choice that a lot of people wouldn't make, or that like felt like I'm
Giving
walking
up.
away from this opportunity. But honestly, staying in that position would have been a failure because I wasn't valued or compensated.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's like a beautiful reframe for the whole situation. I think you can also think about, you know, people who go through breakups, for example, of like long-term partnerships, and then feeling like that's a failure of your relationship, but it's not. It's the same thing. Like, it's very courageous to walk away from a long-term relationship that just isn't serving either party anymore. And does it mean the whole relationship was a failure? No, like, you learned a lot from that relationship, and moving into your next one, you're going to be able to apply all these things. So every experience that you're having, if you're approaching that, you know, like Gloria Steinam is saying, if you approach it true to yourself with authenticity and in the moment, your honest self, you're going to learn a lot from that. And
Yeah.
that is a success. And living is a success.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I really like how you're bringing in learning as like if you learn something that is a success, because we learn so much from trying something and failing at it, that it's like trying something and failing is so amazing, right? It's like really brave and it's really important to do, to be like, oh, okay, when I do it that way, that doesn't work out. So now I've learned that I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it this way. And that's such an important process of achieving something and growing as a human being.
Yeah, and I mean, so many of these public figures that we admire, you know, as a public that we really, really admire, most of those people, if you look at their stories, they have failed time and time again,
Yeah.
a lot. You
Mm.
know, I'm thinking about Kobe Bryant randomly, but
Mm.
he would go every morning before everybody else and stay after practice, and he would throw what's it called, three pointers.
I think so.
I'm not a basketball person, but
He threw
he
the
would
ball at the net.
he threw the ball at the net, but I'm inspired him, even though I don't give a shit about basketball, but that's 3-pointers. He would throw 3-pointers over and over 100 times in a row. And if he missed one, he would start over.
Oh, wow.
And that's a failure, right? Like, oh no, I missed one. And what he could give up and walk out, but he said, no, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. And like that discipline also to attain your goals, like that's a beautiful thing, because that is someone also showing resiliency. And I think a lot of these athletes, I never realized it, but a lot of these like sort of athletes that have persevered, they deal with failure very well and adversity very well, because so many of those sports are such a mental game, and they learn and they apply. And I think there's something very inspiring about that.
Yeah. And I think I'm thinking about like how do they do that? How do they sustain that practice? And they must have really good coaches around them, and like
Yes.
people who have that reframed view of failure. And I think that's really important to cultivate in
I
your own
think so too. Good coaches, good supports, and good teams. And
life.
you do see that, like I actually was watching the Beckham documentary, and it's his early years coach at Manchester United, and their team was so strong, I guess, in cultivating what's the word? In cultivating like cooperation within each other and supporting each other no matter what. That creates, it creates resiliency in the individuals also, because like we said before, we're social creatures. We need the sense of belonging, and we need the support, and that is also part of reframing success.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, I have my friend Carla, who I went to OT school with. I will call her up anytime I like need to talk to someone who sees me as a success. Because she does. She's like, looks at me and she's like, wow, you're like trying to build your own business, and that's amazing. And like sometimes I need someone on the outside looking at me through that lens, that like just trying it is successful. Because I forget that that's what I'm doing. And I forget also that people see me in that way. And so thank you, Carla. I love you so much for being that person for me.
But that's such an important aspect in all of this. Like, it's not the individual also, right? Like that creates, it's a success. It's our relationships with people. It's the support that we have. And throughout this whole podcast, we are talking about how other relationships impact our view of success. You were talking about Tom earlier, and Carla. Now I was talking about my ambassadors. I was talking about Rick. Like, having those support systems are huge in also helping us like reframe it, also how we see ourselves. It's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
That actually goes really, oh, sorry, go ahead.
What were you gonna say?
No, tell me first.
I was thinking of how like how your dog sees you. Like, does your dog see you as a success? And what does that mean? Like, what are the qualities that your dog loves about you? And how can you keep those present in your mind to remind yourself that you are successful?
Well, I think like, I don't know. I think my dogs love me just for who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
And for loving them, you know?
Yeah, right. Like they probably view you as like someone who always comforts them when they need it, or like who has the best treats, and who like is just so delighted to be with them too.
Yeah, he'll take me for walks and take care of me. And
Yeah.
I think that's also a beautiful relationship that, can give you a lot of self-esteem in that way also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what I was going to say before actually was that I felt like this was a really good transition into my care tip,
Oh, awesome. Great.
because it is about relationships.
Nice.
So, um, Do you feel ready to transition into the care tip?
I do.
Okay. I feel really good about this conversation. I loved it. So I would love to finish it with a care tip that is called the loving kindness meditation, and it's actually a Buddhist meditation. Comes from a Buddhist practice. And I actually learned it when I was doing my mindful birthing class.
Neat.
And it actually helped me a lot when I was going through pregnancy. And I'm trying to remember why, but I literally can't remember being pregnant. So this is nature's way of making you have more children.
Right. Must have been great. I'll do it again.
It was not great. That's all I remember. But I used to practice this a lot. I just don't remember why it was helpful at the time.
Amazing.
But I still do practice it. And I actually wanted to make a poster with this for my daughter in her room.
Oh, I love that. You should paint it on the
So
wall. You should paint it on the wall.
yeah, I want to do something like that. So I'm gonna walk you guys through it. I actually got this script here, and I just I think I'd like to walk you through it with this script. And let's take the time to really do this in the way it was meant to be done.
Awesome.
All right. So begin by getting yourself comfortable, whether you're seated or laying or in the bathtub if you're pregnant.
Ooh,
Listening. So allow yourself to switch from your usual mode of doing to non-doing, to simply being. You can close your eyes here. Connect with your body if you feel like it, and bring your attention to your breathing. Follow your breath as it comes in and then out of your body without trying to change it. Simply be aware of it and any feelings associated with it. Give full attention to each in-breath and then to each out-breath. Being totally here in each moment with each breath. If distracting thoughts arise, acknowledge them without becoming involved and return to the practice. Take a moment now to consciously set an intention for this practice. Some examples might be to open my heart, to care for myself, to cultivate loving kindness. Now, I want you to bring to mind a person or a pet for whom you are happy to see and have deep feelings of love. Imagine or sense this person or pet, noticing the feelings you have for them arise in your body. It may be a smile that spreads across your face. It may be a warmth in your body. Whatever it is, allow it to be felt. Let go of this person or pet and continue to keep in awareness the feelings that have arisen. Bring to mind now and see if you can offer loving kindness to yourself by letting these words become your words. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live in peace. No matter what I am given, may my heart be filled with love and kindness. Notice the feelings and sensations that arise and let them be. Now try offering loving kindness to someone who supports you. Bring that person to mind and let these words become your words. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live in peace, no matter what you are given. May your heart be filled with love and kindness. Notice the feelings and sensations that arise and let them be. Once feelings for a loved one flow easily, turn your attention to someone with whom you have difficulty. It is best not to start with the most difficult person, but someone who brings up feelings of slight annoyance or irritation. See if you can let these words become your words as you keep this person in awareness. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live in peace no matter what you are given. May your heart be filled with love and kindness. Notice the feelings and sensations that arise and see if you can just allow them and let them be. Now bring your mind to broader community of which you are part of. Imagine your family, your colleagues, your neighbors. Fan out your attention until you include yourself in this offering of love and kindness as you let these words become your words. May we be safe. May we be happy. May we be healthy. May we live in peace no matter what we are given. May our hearts be filled with love and kindness. Notice the sensations and feelings that arise within you. Sit with them for a few moments until you are ready to end the practice and open your eyes.
I always get a little like teary-eyed when a meditation goes really well.
Oh, I'm so glad it went well.
Thank you
I
for
really, yeah, it was a bit weird because I wasn't able to do it myself, but I I actually remembered when I was reading it why I did it when I was pregnant, and it was to feel less alone. It was during the 2020 pandemic,
Wow.
and to feel connected, the one where we say we in community,
Mhm.
that was often I would bring that to all the women I knew that were pregnant at the time, and then all, the women that were pregnant around the world, like I would imagine them, and it would just, yeah, I would bring tears to my eyes also, and just I could let go of like a lot of difficult feelings of unknown and loneliness.
Yeah. It sounds like it was like really helpful to remind you that you are part of a community, even if you are physically separated from people.
Yeah. So what was it like for you? What brings the tears?
I think partially just like a release of stress. There are stress hormones in our tears. And so like when my body is relaxing, it will like just flush my eyes out, which is really nice.
Good.
Yeah. And like really just being able to think about um like when you said like don't choose somebody who's like the most difficult person, but someone who has like a slight annoyance. And I was like, oh yeah, like sometimes we get annoyed with people and
Mm.
we just like reject them in some way or like judge them in some way, and this meditation just helped me remember like, oh yeah, those are like people too, and I'm probably on somebody's annoyance list if they're doing the meditation. So like we're all the same, we all annoy each other and we all struggle.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful piece of this, because it really, like in my experience of practicing this, like it really helps you like let go of a lot of resentment.
Yeah.
Um and just anger, like general feelings of anger or annoyances.
Hmm.
Um Another one that this particular practice that, there's different variations of this, but when I was practicing it, there was also one where you can imagine an acquaintance and send them loving kindness. And that always made me really emotional, actually, because I would even like pick, you know, the guy who was selling me falafel, who I just like randomly talked to some and just send him positive, you know, loving kindness energy, even though
Yeah.
I don't know him,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Those moments are so important. Like when like someone's like delivering a package and you just like thank them. in some way,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I picked this for today because I think when we're talking about success, I think sometimes we pit ourselves against each other in that sense. And like this meditation is, I think, a way to like reframe success and competition with
Mm-hmm.
each other and success within ourselves. And, we're all, I think the goal of, again, underneath it, our goal of success is to feel happy,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, like sometimes we think that wealth is going to make us happy or fame is going to make us happy
Mm-hmm.
or our business is going to make us happy. And that's also the other thing. Like maybe if our businesses were like whatever, our exaggerated definition of successful is, like, would that make us happy?
Mm, I don't know.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Yeah. Such a great question. Thanks for this conversation, Angela. I felt really like we really touched on a lot of things that we've been feeling and thinking about, and we're able to name them. So that felt really good.
Totally. I really appreciated this conversation. It was definitely an overdue one. And I think, yeah, it's just really nice to talk about this because it's such a topic that is on my mind a lot. And um, I just really enjoy dissecting these topics with you in a
Mhm.
deep way.
Yeah, yeah. And feeling that sense of camaraderie with you also, that like, okay, yeah, we're in this together and we're experiencing similar struggles.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that also, like, maybe I will listen to this when I feel alone also, and I hope that for listeners that this also helps people feel less alone in whatever they're aiming for or their goals are, and that, it can be a struggle sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah, we definitely applaud you regardless of the outcome. You are successful just for trying.
Yeah, and you're learning while you're trying, and that's to me is successful. That's my definition of success.
Love it.
Okay. And we'll see you next week on Success with Dogs. Ooh, that's like a whole nother, it's a whole nother thing.
Totally. That's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm
Before
excited
we
for it.
before we sign off, do you have any updates that you want to share from Cloud Doodles?
Oh my gosh, of course. Yes. I do. I have one update that I want to get out there. So we just launched some Christmas bundles. There's 7 of them. If you have to do any last minute shopping for friends with pups or cats. We also have size extra extra small now for cats.
Nice.
Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, if you need to do some last minute shopping, we have bundles that are free express worldwide shipping. And you can order them up until December 21st. So you
Nice.
will get it guaranteed before Christmas. I know sometimes life gets really busy and you got to get those gifts last minute. So we're here for you.
Awesome.
How about you, Sharon? Do you have some updates?
Yeah, well, while I am in this sort of like pulling back a little bit from public facing activities, I am still available for behavior consulting or coaching if you are looking for some support in that way. And my workbooks are still available. My digital workbooks is as well as some pre-recorded classes. And you can get gift certificates. So if you're looking for a gift for a dog lover in your life, you can purchase a gift certificate and support them in um, supporting their relationship with their dog.
That's a good one. Great
Yeah.
gift.
All right, everybody, we will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support the show, go to buymeacoffee.com/HDHH podcast and send us a few bucks so that we can stay awake and energized to make more content.
Even though we are licensed professionals in our own field of work, Angela, LCSW, Sharon, OTD, and CDBC, this podcast is not intended to replace individual therapy for humans or behavior support for dogs. We approach our conversations from an exploratory, observational, and strictly personal lens.
If you are struggling with your mental health, your dog's behavior, or if you or your dog have experienced a recent traumatic event, please see the resources section on our websites for a list of resources and places that can help. Visit either www.hc-collab.com/happydoghappyhuman or www.clouddoodles.com/happydoghappyhuman. This podcast is made possible by the collaboration between Cloud Doodles and Human Canine Collaborative. Check out our websites at www.clouddoodles.com or www.hc-collab.com. Special thanks to Tom Fox for support with editing and production consulting. You can find Tom at tomfoxphotos.com. Special thanks to Muggins, Duchess, Pepper, and Biscuit for sound effects and story examples. We could not and would not ever want to do this without you.